उत्तम क्लास। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी। हरे कृष्णा। We continuing Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1st, Chapter 1st. Questions of the sages, Shloka number 2. Shloka number 2.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Hare,
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. धर्म प्रोजित कैतव अत्र परम निर्मसराणां मतां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवम् अत्र वस्तु शिवदं तापत्रय उन्मूलनम्। श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परे ईश्वरः सद्य रुद्धि अवरुध्यते अत्र कृतिभिः शुश्रूषुभिः तत्क्षणात्। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवाञ्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजन सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांच। नमो ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात देशतारिणे वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण। The Srimad Bhagavatam
is superior.
Superior to
May I
Brahma Mataji.
start reading? Yeah. Okay. May I start?
Yes, Mataji.
So Srimad Bhagavatam is superior to all of this because it aims at the supreme truth, which is the substance of the root of the all categories. From Srimad Bhagavatam, one can come to know the substance as well as categories. The substance is the absolute truth, the supreme Lord, and all dimensions are relative form of energy. Nothing is apart from the substance, but at the time, the energies are different from the substance. This conception is not contradictory. Srimad Bhagavatam explicitly promulgates this simultaneously one and different philosophy of the Vedanta Sutras, which begins with the Janmadhya Asya Sutra. This knowledge that the energy of the Lord is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord is an answer to the material speculators' attempt to establish the energy as the absolute. When this knowledge is factually understood, one sees the conceptions of monism and dualism to be imperfect. Development to this transcendental consciousness grounded in the conception of simultaneously one and different leads one immediately to the stage of freedom from the threefold miseries. The threefold, uh, I'm not able to see the sharing. Okay. Threefold miseries. The threefold miseries are those miseries which arise from the mind and body, those miseries inflicted by other living beings, and those miseries arising from the natural catastrophes over which one has no control. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the surrender of the devotee unto the absolute person. The devotee is fully aware that he is one with the absolute and at the same time in the eternal position of servant to the absolute. In the material conception, one falsely thinks himself the lord of all the so, when he thinks himself the lord of all, he surveys, and therefore he is always troubled by the threefold miseries of life. But as soon as one comes to know his real position as a he at uh, transcendental servant, he had once become free from all miseries. As long as a living entity is trying to master the material nature, there is no possibility of his becoming servant of the Supreme. Service to the Lord is rendered in the pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. By serving one is immediately freed from the material and encumbrances.
Hare Krishna. So, a very important philosophy and discussion is happening here. So, Prabhupada ji is here talking about one of the sutras of Vedanta philosophy, which starts with Janmadi Asya. And this is exactly what this whole shloka also starts with. It is starting with Janmadi Asya philosophy itself. So what is this philosophy that Prabhupada ji is talking about? Is an important aspect which we should know and try to understand. So if you see the whole discussion of this particular shloka, it is starting with that I have to reject all religious activities which are materially motivated. That is the beginning. That dharma projahita kaitava atra parama nirmatsarana satam. So this is was the propounding is happening. So here Prabhupada ji is now giving us more explanations. So yesterday Prabhupada ji said how Bhagavatam is superior to all literatures because it is talking only about how to reach the Supreme Lord. And he is the substance or the root of all categories. So basically, Bhagavatam is enabling us to know the substance as well as the categories. So what is the substance? Krishna. And what are the different categories? The different emanations, which are relative forms of energy. Now let me take back little to Srimad Bhagavad Gita. There when Krishna is saying, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tada atmanam srujami aham. So there also Krishna is saying, Srujami aham, atmanam srujami aham. So he himself appears. So this same aspect is coming in this purport of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2 as well. Because nothing is apart from the substance. Now we are seeing Krishna is the substance. And everything that is emanating from him is also a part of him. Because we have been with Krishna. We are his Anshaha, but we are Anu, and Krishna is large, Vibhu. Since we are part of Krishna, we are having nearly the same qualities, but then the energies are different from the substance. That is Krishna. Now, many times it becomes contradictory. If we are a part of same, how can we not be same? That is a general question, which especially the Mayavadis, they claim and they ask. So Srimad Bhagavatam actually promulgates this one and different philosophy. And that is why this Janmadi Asya Sutra is very, very important to understand that we are one simultaneously one and different from Krishna. So how are we different? We are different because we are not the controller. We are different because we are not the enjoyer. We are different because we cannot do what Krishna does. We are different because Krishna has all the opulences. That is why he is Bhagavan. Well, we have nothing of that. So this knowledge that energy of the Lord is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord is this answer to all those who try to establish the energy as the absolute. So we have to practically and factually understand this conception of monism and dualism. So when we are developing this transcendental consciousness with this conception in mind, immediately we get freed from the threefold miseries. Now we have heard about this repeatedly time and again. Adi Daivik, Adi Bhautik, and Adhyatmik. So these are the threefold miseries with which we suffer repeatedly throughout the existence in this material world. So all the miseries which are coming out of this mind and body. So they are Adi Bhautik. So for example, if a mosquito comes and bites and there is dengue, then that is Adi Bhautik misery. And then uh, Adi Daivik. So miseries which are inflicted upon by other jivas. They are all Adi Daivik. And then there are miseries which come from natural catastrophes on which we have no control at all. So Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the surrender of the devotee to the absolute truth. That is Shri Krishna Bhagavan. And that is why these two first slokas are very, very important. Because it makes us understand that though we may be one with absolute, at the same time, the eternal position is of a servant to Krishna. In material world, many a times you falsely think that, oh, I am the Lord of this, I am the owner of this. So everything that is near me, I own it. And the moment this little even doubt or a thought comes that I own something or I control something, that something should happen as per my wish, immediately the threefold miseries come. But the moment we accept our position as transcendental servant, we become free from all miseries. So Prabhupada ji says that as long as a jiva is trying to master the material nature, there is no possibility of we accepting our position as servant to Krishna. So service to Lord can only be rendered in pure consciousness of our spiritual identity. And by service, we can be immediately freed from material encumbrances. So it is important that we reach that stage. We achieve that stage wherein we become freed from all kinds of material encumbrances. Because if you don't become free from material encumbrances, then we will always be trouble. We'll always be in difficulties, and we'll always be somehow or the other bound in this material world and keep on moving repeatedly from one body to another body to another body. So let us understand what Prabhupada ji is trying to tell us further in this particular aspect clearly. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Over and above uh,
Over and above this, Srimad Bhagavatam is a
Personal
personal
commentation on the
commentation
Vedanta
on the
Sutra by Srila
on the
Vyasdev.
Vedanta Sutras by Sri Vyasdev.
Nijam.
Am I audible, Praviti?
Mataji, you are not audible clearly.
No?
Yeah, can you be little loud?
Ex-
Sri
It
Vyasdeva
was
is
written
the
in the
authorate incarnation of Narayan, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, there is no question as to his authority. He is author of all other Vedic literature. Yet he recommends the study of Srimad Bhagavata above all others. In other Puranas, there are different methods set forth by which one can worship the demigod. But in the Bhagavatam, only the Supreme Lord is mentioned. The Supreme Lord is the total body, and the demigods are the different parts of that body. Consequently, by worshipping the Supreme Lord, one does not need to worship the demigods. The Supreme Lord becomes fixed in the heart of the devotee immediately. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended the Srimad Bhagavatam as the spotless Puran and distinguishes it from all other Puranas. The proper method of receiving this transcendental message is to hear it submissively. A challenging attitude cannot help one realize this transcendental message. One particular word is used herein for proper guidance. This word is shushru, shu. One must be anxious to hear this transcendental message. The desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification. Less fortunate persons are not at all interested in hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam. The process is simple, but the application is difficult. Unfortunate people find enough time to hear idle social and political conversation, but when invited to attend a meeting of devotees to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, they suddenly become reluctant. Sometimes professional readers of the Bhagavatam immediately plunge into the confidential topics of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, which they seemingly interpret as sex literature. Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to be heard from the beginning. Those who are fit to assimilate the work are mentioned in this shloka. One becomes qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam after many pious deeds. The intelligent person with thoughtful discretion can be assured by great sage Vyasdev that he can realize the Supreme Personality directly by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam without undergoing the different stages of realization set forth in the Vedas. One can be lifted immediately to the position of Paramahamsa simply by agreeing to receive this message. Thus end the purport.
Hare Krishna. So let us try to please understand and summarize what we are trying to get through this shloka before we go into the other aspects. So we have already seen yesterday how how Sri Vyasdev is talking about religion, which has four primary subjects, and how human life begins when religion begins. The aim of religion is being self-realization. So this is the reference to our eternal relationship with God. And it is Srimad Bhagavatam only, which is a transcendental literature, which can be understood by pure devotees who are transcendental to the sense gratification. So you have seen the three paths, how one involves karma kand, the other involves Marga, and the third one, which is trying to realize the absolute truth. But then above the impersonal feature is Paramatma, and above the Paramatma feature is the Bhagavan. And that is why we need to understand that substance is Bhagavan. So, as we saw today, nothing is apart from substance, but at the same time, the energies are different from substance. And Srimad Bhagavatam promulgates the simultaneously one and different philosophy, which begins with Janmadi Asya Sutra. So here now, we are talking about the threefold miseries as well. Adi Bhautik, Adi Devik, and Adhyatmik, which we are understanding. Now, if you have to overcome these miseries, what is mentioned in this particular shloka and the purport is that we have to serve the Lord. And the service to the Lord has to be in pure consciousness with our understanding of our spiritual identity. If you are able to develop that spiritual identity and then take up service to the Lord, then such service enables us to become completely free from material encumbrances. So now the question arises that two activities are mentioned here. One is to have our spiritual identity, understand the spiritual identity. Second, get pure consciousness. And on the basis of these two, start serving to the Lord. So how do we do this? And that is where the instructions of Guru, the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, the Acharyas come handy to understand this. So Prabhupada ji says that in Kali Yuga, we cannot be easily cured unless we take up to the Yuga Dharma of Kali Yuga. So what is the Yuga Dharma of Kali Yuga? The Yuga Dharma of Kali Yuga is Harer Nam. Harer Nam, Harer Nam, Harer Nam eva kevalam kalo nasteva gatir anyatha is what is clearly mentioned about Harinam. And when Krishna incarnated as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has come to establish this principle. Because everything is working under the directions of Krishna. So when Prabhupada ji was taking a lecture on this particular shloka, he says that foolish people think that nature is working automatically. It is their ignorance. Because nature is actually working under the instructions of Krishna. And Krishna confirms this in 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, wherein he says, Madhyakshena prakriti shruyate sacharacharam hetu nanena kaunteya jagad vipari vartate. So under my superintendence, the material energy is working and therefore so many wonderful changes are going. Everything is under the control of Krishna. So we have to start following the instructions of Krishna. From childhood to boyhood, boyhood to youthhood, youthhood to old age. The changes happen. They are natural changes. But then, after old age, you have to change the body as well and accept another body. So if you are saying that no, we do not understand the orders of material nature and I can overcome it, it is impossible. So dharma means to have faith. And if you don't have faith, still you have to abide by the laws of nature. And that is why in English we have a proverb or a saying that wherein we say, as sure as death. There is nothing more sure than death. So if you have to say, don't worry, it will be done, it is as sure as death. This is the reason behind it. No one can say, oh, I don't care for that, there will be no death. No, it will happen. So the conclusion is that no one can manufacture any laws or nature. So we have to understand this. And the moment we understand this, then it becomes our duty to start following it as it is. Because only when we follow it, we can be purified. Now, many a times we say, no, we hear that, okay, I have to worship so and so person. Like for many a times we see people or students especially worshipping Ganesh Devji so that they get good marks. Vidya, putrarth, dhanarthim dhanam putrarthim putram moksharthim moksha is one of the shlokas in the Ganesh mantra. So that is why everyone worships Ganesh. But then Krishna is saying that Supreme Lord is total body and demigods are the different parts of the body. So if you worship Supreme Lord, that is total body itself, then we don't need to worship the parts, that is demigods. And so you will find that many of the devotees' kids, they are scoring so many good marks in exams as well. And there are so many kids who have taken admissions in professional colleges and then they come to know about Krishna consciousness and then they say, oh, I should have known it earlier. इतना फालतू का टाइम पास और मेहनत नहीं करना पड़ता था. This is the fact. This is the truth. So the proper method is to understand this relationship. So the question still comes, how do we purify? We know the instructions, but how do we know what is the instruction? How do we know what is the transcendental message? So Prabhupada ji mentions that the proper method for receiving this transcendental message is to hear it submissively. So submissively, shushrushu. We must be anxious to hear the transcendental message. The desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification. So it should be like, when will 8 p.m. start? I have to listen to the Bhagavatam class. Even if you are going somewhere out, oh, I need to open my mobile. I have to attend the Bhagavatam class at 8 p.m. That desire to listen has to be there. And how do we listen? It has to be from the beginning, not from middle. So those who talk about Bhagavad Saptah and try to summarize, that is not recommended. It is meant to be heard from the beginning. And how do we become qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam? It's only after many pious deeds. Prabhupada ji is saying that intelligent person with thoughtful discretion can be assured by Vyasdev ji himself that he can realize the Supreme Personality directly by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. But by hearing Bhagavatam, we can only realize, we cannot achieve. So after realization, we need achievement of Krishna Prem. And for that, we have to do our chanting clearly and regularly.